The South Carolina 2016 season already has to be considered a success. Back in postseason play at 6-6, following just 3 wins last year. And we bring in Will Gunter from the all-new early game there on 107.5, The Game in Columbia, to break down the Gamecocks and help us out with South Florida in the Birmingham Bowl. Will, it's been a while.
For the Birmingham Bowl or for us? Either or. It's been
for us. For the Birmingham Bowl, I don't know my Birmingham Bowl history to a T, but I'm thinking this is a first for the Gamecocks.
No, it's not. That's been a topic of discussion around Columbia for the last several weeks, because the last Birmingham Bowl trip was not pleasant for a variety of different reasons. Number one, South Carolina lost to UConn 20-7. It may have been the coldest day on record in Birmingham. They ran out of pizza in the stadium. It was an interesting experience for Gamecock fans that day. That was actually coming off of a victory over Clemson, where a lot of people, that team had Alshon Jeffrey and Stephon Gilmore, and there was a lot of positive momentum. Steven Garcia was the quarterback. Marcus Lattimore would come in the next year. That was a team that a lot of people were very excited about, and they went there and just absolutely laid an egg in Birmingham, and it was a bad experience for everybody. So second trip, and here's something interesting, just FYI. This is Will Muschamp's third straight year being in the Birmingham Bowl, but the first year he will actually make the trip to go coach in it. His Florida Gators went in 2014 and played East Carolina, in which he did not coach the bowl game last year. The Auburn Tigers went and played Memphis, but he had moved on to South Carolina, did not coach in that game for Auburn, and so the Birmingham Bowl finally gets what they've been wanting: Will Muschamp in Birmingham coaching a football game.
Oh, man, for a guy that considers himself sometimes to have encyclopedic bowl knowledge, yeah, I had missed that UConn game. Yeah, it does come to mind now, and I'm sure that I checked it off at the time. SEC, Conference USA, whatever they were at the time, Big East, bam. That's said and done. But, yeah, that South Carolina team went down there and may not necessarily have wanted to be there playing in the cold in that one. But since then, you're talking wins against the likes of Michigan, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Miami in bowl games. It's been pretty good for the Gamecocks in postseason play since then. So they're back at it. You gotta feel good, Will. We talked about this team a number of times throughout the summer, and getting to 6-6. Beating Tennessee, the Eastern Division favorite, finding a quarterback. That may be most important. You seemingly have found the guy, and he's so young, and for him to be able to make plays and really show you something in the second half of the season, it has to be very promising.
Well, it is. But it's a two-sided coin on this because there's a lot of concern about Kurt Roper's offense. There's been a lot of things in the offensive line. Sean Elliott now going to Georgia State, and I can tell you here in Columbia, there's been people who have been excited about that because they felt a change was needed on the offensive line. The team gave up over 30 sacks this past season and struggled at times to run the football. And you know what? To be fair, not to knock Tennessee, but it might be fair to say that Vanderbilt in the opener, given how Vanderbilt beat Tennessee and Vanderbilt closed the season, conceivably Vanderbilt on the road might have been the best win of the season now as we look back over it. But to go back to the offense, I think what's interesting here, and I'm kind of in this boat with South Carolina in that, all right, you're right, Jake Bentley's a freshman, but he's now played in 6 games, and he's going to have 15 practices to prepare for the bowl game. So he's still a freshman, but he's a little bit older. Rico Dowdle's a little bit older. Brian Edwards has played a whole season. Debo Samuel will be going in his junior year next year. It'll be his 4th year in the program, his 3rd year on the football field next year. At what point do freshmen become sophomores and you make that transition? Because the offense over the last 4 games was up and down. It was good against Western Carolina and Missouri, but, man, really struggled against Florida and Clemson and really looked awful, quite frankly. They looked like one of the worst offenses in the country. So you're right, you have this quarterback, but I think with that quarterback, with these playmakers, it brings expectations that South Carolina should go into this football game and be able to move the football and look like a competent FC and FBS football team on the offensive side of the ball. So it's kind of interesting, interesting argument back and forth right now between Gamecock fans about what they're expecting to see from the offense in the bowl game.
Exactly, and I think the argument probably also includes this. The optimism over getting to 6-6 after 3-9, getting to a bowl game, defeating the 2 teams you talked about, versus this being kind of the Will Muschamp mold of let's play defense. Let's win the special teams. Let's not turn over the ball on offense and try to button things up and not get too crazy on offense. Just do enough just to move the ball, win the kicking game, and win these games, whether that's going to be the staple of Will Muschamp as it was at Florida. And I don't think South Carolina fans would be looking forward to that kind of approach long term, or was just that the approach this year because that's what we needed to do to maximize the talent we had this year, get us through with the quarterback situation, and then hopefully we can open things up and do some different things later.
Well, South Carolina is an interesting program to be an offensive coordinator, to be a head coach. At Florida, and your good buddy, my good buddy David Waters with SEC Breakdown, we've talked about this in relation to at Florida. You don't just have to win, but you have to kind of win with style. I mean, you look at Jim McElwain right now. He's got 2 SEC Eastern Division championships, but people are upset with him. I mean, there were people after the Florida State game that were kind of ready to run him out on a rail because he's not winning with offense. He's kind of smoke and mirrors and a pretty good defense. So Will Muschamp at Florida can be a different Will Muschamp at South Carolina. He can run the ball effectively, and he's got a good running back to do that. He's got some talent on the offensive line. That makes that offensive line higher that much more important. So if they can run the ball effectively, kind of as they did against Missouri and Western Carolina, and even against Tennessee, Mark, you go back and Rico Dowdle had over 100 yards in that game. People here will accept that. What they can't accept is what they saw in the Clemson game, which is basically Clemson having free reign to take whatever shot they wanted on Jake Bentley. The offense looking completely discombobulated. There's been rumors that there was just a lack of creativity and formations, and that other teams knew what was coming on at least 20 plays throughout the game. That's what people won't accept. They need to see at least a competent offense, but it can be a run-based dominant offense like Will Muschamp might want to run as long as it's effective. There's a difference there with how Florida fans wanted to see their offense after seeing Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, and how South Carolina fans just want to win even if it's running the football.
Because you got a really interesting matchup with the South Florida team that didn't win its conference, the American, but finished 10-2, and was really in that collection of teams that was at the cream of the crop in that conference. Temple, Houston, Navy, Memphis, they were all really good and kind of beat each other. And there was really no clear-cut best team in that conference, and they were right there. They've got Quinton Flowers, as you well know, dynamic playmaker at quarterback who threw for 2,000, ran for 1,000, 15 scores. Marlon Mack, a capable back who ran for 1,300 yards. So you can't expect to completely clamp down this offense and then win, 13-9. There's going to have to be some points on the board, you would think, from the Gamecocks.
Well, there will be. I think with defensively, when you talk about Quinton Flowers and everybody, there's no doubt this team after the Tennessee game went downhill defensively, both in terms of fundamentals and tackling, and also they just seemed to wear out. I talked with you at the beginning of the season, and one of the key things defensively was depth. Well, they managed to get through without a whole lot of injuries, but you could tell late in the season those players looked beaten up, worn down, and then quite frankly, they just got to get better players. And so when you combine all those things, you saw Florida really have a good offensive day, even though they turned it over multiple times. Western Carolina came in and put up 24 offensive points and ran a kickoff back to make it 31. And Clemson had their way offensively with South Carolina. So there's a lot of people that are very interested to see, now that you've had about a 4-week break and you'll get these 15 practices, what does the defense go out and do to complement, just like we're talking about the offense. People want to see improvement when you have these practices and you have a break and you have everything that's going on. People want to see improvement on the defense as well. So you're right, an interesting matchup trying to slow down a kind of an unknown superstar in Quinton Flowers.
Darius English, 12.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. He moves on after his senior season. So he was the playmaker first and foremost for this 2016 edition. But you mentioned kind of the transition, the bowl game being kind of the transition. Is it the end of the current season, or kind of in a lot of ways the beginning of the next season with having the 15 practices and moving ahead, turning the calendar over? So besides Dowdle, Bentley on offense, anybody on defense, anywhere else on offense that you would really like to see stand out, because you're going to need them to be players in 2017?
Well, you want to see, starting with the defensive secondary, Jamarcus King, who was playing really well in the month of October and then was atrocious in the month of November against Tennessee, he was really, really good and appeared to be coming on again, even against Texas A&M. The whole month of October, you started to go, okay, this is why Jamarcus King was the #1 defensive back in junior college in 2015. And then he was awful. Florida just lit him up. Clemson, there's a running joke. He got carried into the end zone by Mike Williams, and then just a very, very bad month. Will Muschamp's come out and said that Jamarcus King needs to get stronger. Rashad Fenton, Chris Lamons, both other defensive backs. What's interesting, to go back to your point, Will Muschamp did his press conference last week. They're going to have 3 players, and I've heard of this happening in college football, but we've never seen it at South Carolina. We know of at least 3 players who will not play in the bowl game. They are a part of this recruiting class, the 2016 recruiting class, that will participate in the bowl practices. 2 junior college defensive backs, Caleb Chalmers and Keyshawn Nixon, and a high school defensive end/tackle, MJ Webb. So it is kind of interesting. A lot of people kind of going, okay, Birmingham Bowl, we're not going. We'll watch the game on TV, but this is more of an extended spring practice for this football team. You know, even if they get to 7-6, people are happy that some of these guys are coming in and starting to practice.
All right, well, we mentioned it off the top. This is a proud program that's just in very recent years defeated the likes of Michigan, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Miami in bowl games, but this is a much different deal with a new program, new coach, new energy, hopefully going forward, and a lot of young players that need to get into the mix and show what they can do as they're going to be more counted on in 2017. All right, Will Gunter from the all-new early game there on 107.5 in Columbia, South Carolina. Will, we couldn't do this without you. We appreciate the time, man.
Always appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you. Love the Christmas tree in the back. What's that? It's some ornaments there. Very good stuff there. It's
very homespun Christmas tree here. Well, we get the ornaments that the kids made when they were just little tykes. You know, you got to keep that stuff around.
Exactly right. Looks good, man. Merry Christmas to you, and you always appreciate joining you talking some South Carolina football.